Today I'm here to present one of the studies that I've done as part of my dissertation at Maastricht University, and it's titled A Comparison of Effects and Experiences Following Either Vaporization and Intramuscular Injection of Synthetic 5-MeO-DMT in a Naturalistic Setting. And I did this project together with a bunch of other people, specifically Rafael Ancelota, Ana Maria Ortiz Bernal, and Alan Coy Davis, and my supervisors Jordi Riba and Johannes Ramakers. And it's been a pleasure to work with these people. Like, Rafael is an excellent psychedelic therapist at Innate Path in Denver, Colorado. Ana Maria Ortiz Bernal, she's actually doing her thesis now on the topic of reactivations, which I'll be mentioning today, following 5-MeO-DMT experiences. And so I'm really much looking forward to see her work published as well, which will actually be a great addition to what we currently know about 5-MeO-DMT. Alan Coy Davis, he's been doing this survey study on 5-MeO-DMT, so he's known for this as well. And Jordi Riba, my supervisor, has been doing extensive research on ayahuasca. And Johannes has also collaborated a lot with Jordi in the past and is doing a lot on Mariana and things like this. So yeah, let's just give them a hand of applause. Even though they're not here, I just want to take a time to acknowledge them. So yeah, let's dive into all of this. So 5-MeO-DMT can be synthetically made. It can also be found in plants and in the Bufo Alvarius toad, which has made the little guy quite the celebrity in the recent times. And with this comes quite some consequences. I wrote about this at length for Psychedelics Today in this article here that I would like to share with you. I'm not going to be talking about the content today because that's a whole other lecture, but I would like to summarize the takeaway message in this design here made by my friend Alberto Latorre, and it came about to, like, me and Rafael were thinking, like, how can we raise awareness about this? And he came up with this design idea, and then Alberto made it. So I actually have some stickers here. There's not a lot left, so come and grab one before they run out. But yeah, save a toad, exploit a chemist. Compared to like ayahuasca and psilocybin, there isn't a lot of research done on 5-MeO-DMT, and this is why it was very interested for me to do it as part of my dissertation at Maastricht. But the current data that is out there is, I would suggest, are quite the gems, to say the least. We've seen that there are betterment in mental health related symptoms following 5-MeO-DMT use from either 4-MeO toad secretion or yopo or synthetic. We also see that it can induce mystical experiences of similar intensity of high-dose psilocybin and can invoke the experience of ego dissolution. And also we see that it can inhibit cell death, brain lesion, inflammation, and induce neuroplasticity. And then there was suggested that it might have had immunomodulatory potential via the sigma-1 receptor, and this is work done by Attila Sabo. And we met last year at Beyond Psychedelics in Prague, and he came up to me and he was very interested in doing something with 5-MeO-DMT. And so 2 weeks ago at Breaking Convention, I presented the findings of that collaboration, which essentially was about looking into people that had vaporized synthetic 5-MeO-DMT, and we collected salivary samples. And we found that there was an increase in salivary cortisol, which is not surprising because this is the effect that you would see with psychedelics. But we found a downregulation of IL-6, which is a biomarker for inflammation. So it points to its anti-inflammatory potential. And also we saw that there was improvement in affect and non-judgment. Non-judgment was mentioned yesterday by Ashley as a mindfulness-related capacity. So even though there's a lot of good stuff out there now on 5-MeO-DMT, there are certain people that are not having such a great time following the use, and there is sort of like this phenomena of reactivation. And you can see it from like a lot of Facebook groups. People are asking about like what can they do and how to handle this thing. And also here from 5Hive, which is a forum made by Rafael and Solata. A quick search, and you find that there's a lot of talking about reactivation. So it became very important to dig deeper into this. We have kind of like defined reactivation as the re-experiencing of some of the effects induced by 5-MeO-DMT intake sometime after the acute effects are over. And it's not published yet, but it's going to be in Annie's thesis, and it's coming out of like the survey study that Alan Coy-Davis did. So they found that there are following triggers of reactivations, and one of them is marijuana use, falling asleep, like deep states of relaxation and deep meditation, certain smells, and I was going through this yesterday and thinking like, yeah, certain smells, indeed, because 5-MeO-DMT has this like specific taco-like smell to it, so it smells like burnt tortillas. So I think that could be something. And certain sounds. But we do kind of like think that it's very different from LSD flashbacks because it's not that long lasting and it's not always negative. And from what I can remember now on the top of my head is that from Alan's survey, they kind of like asked the question if people found the reactivation negative or not, and actually only 3% reported that they did. But what's happening? So I was traveling around a lot in Europe trying to research 5-MeO-DMT and went to like a lot of ceremonies, and I was asking the facilitators, so what's happening here? And what they're telling me is like, the toad spirit is working, you know? And I was like, that's not really helpful. But so I was like, okay, this is not gonna work in a presentation or in a publication, so we need to look deeper into it, you know? What we do know is that compared to intramuscular injection, vaporization has a very fast onset and have this like shock-like effect to the nervous system. And in the book by Orrock, like it's kind of like been described as being shot out of a cannon or like shot into the universe. And yeah, not too pleasant. But this made me think along the line of the work of Peter Levine, who says that anything that occurs too fast, too soon, and too much has the potential to overwhelm the autonomic nervous system and thereby induce trauma. So we started thinking if it's administration related, and so this is essentially what I'm going to present to you today is the findings of this study that we did. So we wanted to look into whether there was an association with the administration route and also examine other similarities and or differences between the two routes of administration. So we looked at redosing, time of onset, perceived somatic release that felt therapeutic in the session, and also ratings of satisfaction with life and the psychedelic experience. And we designed an online-based study. We started recruitment last year in November and finished it this June. There wasn't a lot of people though. A total of 50 participants completed it, but we had to exclude quite a few because none of them, like these folks, didn't really fill out the entire survey. And one person reported that he or she had used toad secretion, so we were like, no, we wanna just focus on the synthetic one for the toads, you know. So we had a sample size of 27 participants, and 14 of them were using 5-MeO intramuscularly, and 13 were using vaporization. We designed a 5-MeO-DMT survey that was based off of the one that Alan already used, but we tweaked it, so we were like starting off by describing two common types of the administration route. We encouraged people that had an experience with IM to reply with this experience in mind, since there isn't any data out yet on IM. Also asked about their trip report, their dosing, onset of the experience, and prior experience with psychedelics. We also asked if any of them had like a diagnosis of a mental health related disorder, their motivation for use, and adverse and somatic effects, and so on. And we also included 3 subjective measures. One of them was the satisfaction with life scale, the other one was the ego dissolution inventory, and finally the mystical experience questionnaire. And this is just to get you familiar with the participants. It's not anything like statistically standing out here between the groups. But yeah, age is around 30. It's a lot of males, and the main origin is North America. Education-wise, it's about bachelor's or master's. And yeah, with IM, it seems like a lot more people are diagnosed with something. And all of them had previous experience with 5-MeO-DMT as well as psychedelic overall. Like we had this like long list, and people could tick off whatever they had taken before. Yeah, so this is about their motivation for using 5-MeO-DMT in this specific time point. And it seems like both of them are kind of like going for this to understand themselves better or out of curiosity. We also asked about adverse effects during the session and after. So here's showing that people in the vaporization group reported more adverse effects than IM. And it seems like when you're looking into like the descriptions of what people felt is that with vaporization there's this fear, panic, and yeah, anxiety, so to speak. And with intramuscular injection, it's about here like feeling immense sorrow, which is deeply unpleasant for obvious reasons, of course. But it's clear that there is kind of like a distinction here. And then adverse effects after, again, it's vaporization that is having this like anxiety, paranoia, depression thing going on. And with IM, it seems like it's just difficult for people to kind of like digest what has come up for them in the experience. But it's kind of echoing what we see in other publications, that adverse effects do happen, but in a small fraction of people. And here is, yeah, 2 graphs showing the ratings of the experience with ego dissolution. It's actually very similar. Nothing statistically different here. And the same for the mystical experience questionnaire. Well, one thing I thought about in preparation of this talk is that it's not surprising that we see higher ratings of transcendence with vaporization compared to IM, like I talked about earlier, like being shot out of a cannon can kind of feel like this. And ratings of satisfaction with life was also very similar to one another. I think, though, based on the interpretation of scores, then with IM you see is 25.35 and vaporization as 23.23. And essentially what this means is that IM was actually high on satisfaction with life. People there was high on satisfaction with life, and vaporization, it was kind of like average. So people in the IM group are better off, so to speak, and vaporizations would want to make some changes in their life in order to get to a higher level. Yeah, time of onset. We see here that the majority of people that had 5-MeO-DMT through vaporization reported an onset that was either between 1 to 50 seconds. And with intramuscular injection group, we see that the majority of people are reporting an onset from like 1 to 3 minutes or 4 to 6. So nothing surprising here about what we know about administration routes. With redosing, though, it seems to be a few things to comment on, and one of them is the dose range. It seems like the facilitator was using like from 3 to 35 milligrams, and in IM it's like 5 to 10. So it's a lot lower, and also it seems like people in the vaporization group are getting redosed more often, as you'll see here. And the dose range is then is like from 1 to 6 doses, and with IM it's only 1 to 2. Then we are going to talk about the somatic release during the experience that felt therapeutic. There was a significant difference here. So as you see here, the people that had IM, all of them had a somatic release that felt therapeutic, whereas only 62% in the vaporization group did. And this is sort of like connected with Peter Levine again, because he designed this like novel therapy called somatic experiencing, sort of like as a way to relieve people that have had trauma or like suffering from distress in their life. And so if you're feeling through all that pain, like Rosalind was talking about also, then you can come to like a resolution of this and you'll ultimately feel better. Now reactivation. So what we suspected here was kind of like confirmed. We did believe that intramuscular injection would have a lower frequency of reactivations, and it seems like this is the case. And I think that this is largely due to, for example, the time of onset and also time of offset. So it's not that shocking for people to have 5-MeO-DMT intramuscularly as with vaporization. So finally, we have some supporting evidence for this hypothesis that we had. And we also asked people like, okay, when did you have a reactivation and what were you doing? And we see that with both of them, it's kind of like the same when as reported in the survey study by Malin. And it's also similar things here, like during meditation, when trying to sleep, and any other activity. So it's echoing what we are seeing. And then I would just like to share like a comparison of like the descriptions that people had, because we did ask those that had experience with both to kind of like give a comparison. And essentially here, IM felt more relaxing and immersive. Vaporized felt more powerful, quick, and disorienting. IM injection came on very gradual in comparison to the almost immediate blast of vaporization. Experiences of fear, overwhelm, dread, and confusion were greatly reduced, allowing for enhanced presence during the experience, preferred route of administration. And here is another one. Vaporization is a lot of a faster come up, which feels a bit scary and a little bit like a shock. Also, the time in the space is much shorter and in an unconscious way, which doesn't really give a lot of release of trauma, but feels more like an experience. Intramuscular injection, on the other hand, had a smoother come-up, which allowed me to comfortably enter the space and have a longer time there, while simultaneously staying connected to this world and my guide through talking about what was coming up for me and be guided and shared for in my experience. So, what does this teach us? Well, there was no significant difference between the two groups with regards to demographics and ratings of the psychedelic experience, and so to satisfaction with life. So it's kind of like, it's the same thing, you get the same effect. But vaporization had a much more rapid onset and compared to intramuscular injection. And redosing occurred more frequently with vaporization. And somatic release was happening more with IM, and as I said, reactivation might be related to vaporization. As with any study, there are of course limitations in this one, like it's obvious, is also a retrospect study, and lack of a placebo control. Participant might be very biased in their responses. There was no sample of 5-MeO-DMT that was collected. And of course, with the legality status of 5-MeO-DMT in the world today, like people that have taken this might have lived in a country or something where it's more legal, or they might have more balls than others to go against the laws. But yeah. In conclusion, the findings suggest that intramuscular route of administrating 5-MeO-DMT may produce lower time of onset, lower frequency of reactivations, and higher frequency of somatic release compared to vaporization. So this might be very favorable in a future clinical trial. So thank you so much, and I guess I will do some questions.
Thank you, Malin, for sharing these very interesting results with us. Anybody has some question? On there?
There's a book from Ralph Metzner called The Toad and the Jaguar, and there he's talking about the nasal application of 5 mg hydrochloride. You know, it's you know, the nasal application in comparison to these two groups?
Not that I know of yet. I have thought about maybe doing something on it, but it seems like intramuscular is the way to go. And I don't know too much about nasally, but I think it would also be quite the rapid onset if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, but definitely something I think should be looked at, of course. Yeah.
I think he's in the book stating that it's slower than vaporized.
Oh, okay, okay. But still very quick, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
But not as quick.
Chris.
I was wondering about somatic release. Did you collect any qualitative data on how was that particularly expressed, or what's your general impression of how that is manifested?
Yeah, no, I do think that we did ask them, so like, if you did feel any somatic release, what was that like? So like, what did you experience? So we do have some reports saying, for example, like there's a lot of emotions that are felt and sensations in the body, be it a pain or just like something that is being released, if that makes any sense. But definitely I should look more into what those reports are saying, and of course include it in the paper when it's coming out.
Another quick one. Is it evident in your impression from other studies that you've done also with substance that the somatic release experience is automatically associated to some, I don't know, some traumatic events in the past or some ongoing, therapeutic content of sorts? Or is it necessary to make that gap, that bridge to the Vedøy?
No, I think that I should definitely run a statistical analysis on it, but I do think there is something to it with traumatic experience before and then feeling as though you can let go of this in a therapeutic setting, for example, with 5-MeO-DMT, and then have this resolution. And also like with Hannes's work, the emotional breakthrough questionnaire and things like that, I think it's all very much tied together. And it's about feeling the pain and not talking or thinking about it, and that's what's going to make a change going forward for a person.
Is there a big interdependence in the experience itself with the synthetic patterns? Because with Bufo, it's quite similar to itself?
With, for example, IM or vaporization, you mean, or just overall in general? I don't think there is like that much of a difference, really. We see the same ratings, similar trends of ratings with both toad and synthetic, and the same with the ego dissolution inventory is pretty much very similar. So yeah.
Do you have any theories on why this reactivation happens in the first place? Like what makes the brain re-enter that state at all?
Yeah, so it's kind of like thinking about what Peter Levine is talking about, like the way that the autonomic nervous system can reply or like or like how would it behave in a stress-like situation. It can either produce a lot of energy going into fight and flight, or it could simply make the person freeze. And so because of that reaction, there's a lot of energy being created and so on. And if that is stuck in the person and not being released, then this can cause a lot of stress and so on. And what I think is happening with 5-MeO is that when people are then more relaxed or having calmed down their nervous system, that it's sort of like, oh, this is a good time to release. And so then perhaps this is what's driving the reactivation, but we need more research on this.
Symptoms like nausea or vomiting, heart rate, and compared to?
Not specifically, because this was like a survey study done in retrospect, so we didn't have that extensive list going on. We just asked them like, okay, what was the adverse effect that you experienced? And then they wrote it down, essentially.
Sorry, if you had a way to decide exactly how speed onset would be, what kind of time would you prefer? What would you feel would be ideal?
For like the time of onset.
Exactly. Slower than IM? Or?
No, I think IM is kind of a sweet spot there. Maybe 2 to 3 minutes, I would say. Yeah. 4 to 6 seems a little bit long, but perhaps that's also good for some people. But I think, yeah, 2 to 3, it's better than just 1 or 2. Like, yeah.
I have a question as well. Your group was quite small, and in the IM group you have more somatic diagnosed people. Do you think that has a correlation with the somatic release being in the IM group?
Yeah, definitely, it could be. I should check more on the data, but it could also be the setting and things like that. I think all of these experiences are very much guided also by the facilitator as well. So with certain facilitators, there's a lot of fear and panic being induced in them, like with, yeah, I'm not going to mention their name, but with IM, it could just be that the facilitator is much more gentle and things like that, and allowing this safe space to happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Malin.